Hello everyone, I apologize for being dressed like this, but I just got out of the weight room. Originally this video was going to be a live stream, a post Smackdown 1000 live stream to be exact. And I was fully prepared to do it, and then there was a weird outage on YouTube, and I didn't know if that would affect the live stream or if you guys would be able to see it or whatever. So rather than mess with all the technical difficulties, I said, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to go to the weight room and work out. Everything appears to be fixed now, but I think the moment to do a live stream is kind of past, so I'm just going to do this as a regular video. This is going to be a reaction to Smackdown 1000, and I will also be reviewing two pay-per-views that happened this weekend. Glory by Honor 16 from Ring of Honor. What was that? Sorry, I heard something weird on the other side of my door. I've got monsters in my apartment building. But, yeah, I'm going to review Glory by Honor 16 from Ring of Honor, which happened Friday night, I believe. And Impact Wrestling's latest pay-per-view outing, Bound for Glory 2018. So, lot to cover, lot to review, lot to unpack, but let's just go ahead and get started. I guess I'll start with SmackDown 1000 since it just happened. What did I think of the show? This is the first episode of SmackDown I've watched in a long time. I honestly couldn't tell you the last episode of SmackDown I watched. Off the top of my head, I can't fucking remember. So, I'm really in the dark on what the Blue Brand has been up to. Actually, at one point, Aiden English and Rusev got into a scuffle, and I started asking people on Twitter, it's like, wait, when did they split? And they were like, dude, that happened like a month ago. And I'm like, Jesus, I'm way behind. Again, you know, I'm not watching it, so I'm not aware of those finer details. But really, SmackDown 1000 was straight up a nostalgia show. It was just straight up, all right, let's just relive all the SmackDown memories and everything. Although I do question having Evolution on the show. I'm like, were they ever on SmackDown prior to this? I mean, yes, Batista was a key guy on SmackDown, absolutely. Randy Orton was a key guy on SmackDown, absolutely. But the faction Evolution, I don't think that ever happened. No, they were pretty much a Raw thing. So there are no SmackDown memories to behold when it comes to Evolution. But it was just straight up, it was like a clip show without really being a clip show. Where it was like, hey, remember that thing? Hey, remember that thing? And that's really most of what the show was. And if you're into that type of stuff, then this show pretty much gave you that. Personally, I could have done without the McMahon Dance Party segment. That went nowhere fast, although Carmella, she's quite the looker. I'm just gonna say, she was the best part of that segment because she gave me something to look at. She's got, I'm trying to think of something stupid to say. She's fine. Let's just say that. She is absolutely gorgeous, and God bless her for looking the way that she does. And keep in mind, I'm trying not to be creepy here. I know I've got no shot with her. I'm fugly as hell, and I've got a voice like Mickey Mouse, so I know I've got no shot. I'm just pointing out a beautiful lady when I see a beautiful lady. So that is that. But the cutting edge segment with Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, which was largely used to pretty much showcase Edge, and this Charlotte and Becky feud that is, again, they're all cheering for Becky. It's like, guys, you need to pivot. You gotta go with the flow on this one. It ain't working. Becky is a heel. It's just no. They all fucking love her. It just doesn't make any sense. By the way, the show was in DC. I did not attend the show, obviously. I could have. You know, it's short metro ride away from me, so I could have easily gone, but why bother? You know, like, I mean, go all the way down there to see Undertaker, because Undertaker would be the sole reason I would go. And Undertaker, and WWE's done this at least 2 or 3 other times, where Undertaker will come out, say absolutely nothing, and then leave, and that's it. And they spend the show like being like, ooh, the Undertaker's gonna be here, and he does his 10-minute entrance, and then he gets on the mic and he has one line, and then he's gone. I'm like, was that really necessary? Did we really? Did we need that? I don't know. What other, like, segment-y things? John Cena sent in a pre-tape. Whatever. I think that's most of the big stuff, I think, as far as, like, the big segments go. You know, I thought Batista cut a really good promo during the Evolution segment. It seemed to hype a Batista Triple H match that I don't think anybody will want. But, you know, it's we'll see come WrestleMania time what the plan is. It'll be interesting. But, God, it was, wasn't Rock supposed to be on the show? I thought Rock was supposed to be on the show. Wasn't he supposed to have, like, some kind of special announcement or something? I don't know. Like, I don't fucking know. But anyway, SmackDown 1000 was kind of flat for me, especially since I kind of knew what it was going to be before I watched it. It was just like the special Raw episodes, like the 25th anniversary of Raw that happened this year. It was just a nostalgia show, and that's all it was. On the wrestling side of things, I thought AJ Bryan and the Usos was an okay match. I like that the Usos went over. Because I hate it when, like, an established and successful tag team puts over the two singles guys. And I'm like, no, the tag team should beat the two thrown together singles guys, okay? Because, you know, the tag team chemistry and all that other stuff. They should at least have a huge advantage over them. And they did in this match, so it actually worked. Miz and Rusev went by so fast, you blinked and you missed it. It was cool seeing Rey Mysterio and Nakamura. I thought that was a solid match. Good main event for the show. And cool to see Rey back. Rey looks great. I mean, he's looked great everywhere else he's been post WWE run. He looks like he's in really good shape, looks really healthy. You put him on a part-time schedule, he could probably hold up and do something really good there. So I thought the match was good. I'm trying to think, was there anything else? Oh, there was the tag title match, the Bar versus the New Day, a match that I have not been watching WWE for months now, and I feel like I've seen that match 1,000 times. So I wasn't overly interested in it. Not a terrible match or anything, I just feel like, I've seen it, you know. Can't get too invested in it. And we got Big Show coming the fuck out of nowhere and attacking New Day and causing them to lose the SmackDown Tag Team title. So at least as far as storyline development goes, something happened on this show. It wasn't just a complete waste of time. And hey, remember that, remember this, remember that. You at least got a title change on the show. The Big Show turning heel for the 955th time is a bit... Hey, I guess, you know what? It's a nostalgia show, and that's one of their things. It's like, oh, it ain't SmackDown unless Big Show turns again. So, there was that. Could have done without that. But anyway, you know, SmackDown 1000, it was just kind of a nothing show to me. It was not terrible, but it's one of those shows. It was what it was. And I got pretty much what I expected out of it, which was just a straight up nostalgia show. Although I could have sworn Rock was supposed to be on the show and have some sort of announcement, because I was half expecting rolling my eyes at The Rock. I'm going to enter the Royal Rumble, which he would then win and then face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. But again, we'll see what happens. But SmackDown 1000, just kind of a forgettable show. Again, if you like the nostalgia stuff, it was probably fun for you. But me, it's like I'm always the type of guy that's like, ooh, what's next in the story? And can you do interesting stories? That type of stuff. So anyway, that was SmackDown 1000. So let's get into the pay-per-views. Let's start with Ring of Honor, Glory by Honor 16. This was not a very good show. And again, this is the second Ring of Honor show in a row, pay-per-view in a row, where I'm just kind of like, kind of a nothing show. It never really seemed to kick into high gear. The last two matches were good, but there was nothing on the show I would describe as being so good that you need to go out of your way to see it. It just kind of felt like a regular run-of-the-mill paint-by-number show and didn't have a whole lot of excitement to it. The crowd didn't seem as into it as they were. And it's funny, it was the same venue that was at the Ring of Honor show I attended back in the summer. Same venue. The crowd looked smaller and were less excited, so I don't know if they just burned us all out back in the summer. I mean, I didn't go back, but I also had a lot of things on my plate last week, so I couldn't. But yeah, the crowd was smaller and less excited, and the atmosphere wasn't as good, so that hurt the show definitely. But match-wise, we got Hangman Page versus Shane Taylor. Solid match. Hangman Page continues to look good. Just a basic solid opener, nothing more than that. Hangman gets the win, which is good for him because he needs to keep moving onwards and upward because that guy is really flipping good. Next up, we got the Kingdom, TKO Ryan and Vinny Marseglia defeating Flip Gordon and Kenny King's eventual replacement Cheeseburger. Kenny King no-showed this match, which there's a payoff to that later in the show, which I liked. Kenny King no-showed the match, and mid-match Cheeseburger came out and was his replacement. The Kingdom still went over, and, you know, it's one of those things. It was really just a setup, oh, Kenny King's turning heel, and he already basically turned heel, but he's being a dick, and he left Flip high and dry, and didn't think this match was important enough to participate in. And so I like that aspect to it, but the match itself was just kind of, it was just there. It was filler. Pretty much all there was. Glad the Kingdom went over, but that's pretty much all there is. Next up was basically a little more than a squash match. Jeff Cobb taking on Eli Isom. I like Jeff Cobb a lot. I think he's great. And I like that they gave him a squash match, just have him kill somebody. He's the Ring of Honor TV champion right now, and I expect them to do more things like that with him moving forward. I thought the match made him look dominant, and that's really all it needed to be. On a better show, this would have been a nice flavoring. Unfortunately for the star rating junkies, on a show that was kind of weak sauce, this one kind of like, oh, it's just a squash match thrown onto a weak-ass card. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I get that argument, but I think this was one of the things I enjoyed the most on the show, because it was just making a guy look really, really strong. And Jeff Cobb came out of this looking pretty good, as usual. And hopefully he continues to look good with this run in Ring of Honor, because so far, it's been so far so good for him. Next up was a match I was not overly interested in. The Briscoes versus the Bouncers. This feels like a match you would see on TV. This doesn't sound like a pay-per-view match, especially since the Briscoes are the ROH Tag Team Champions, and this is a non-title match, which makes sense because the Bouncers, how would they be anywhere near top contention? But it's this was kind of a weak match. I don't know. This one just didn't click with me. You got two big guys in there with Beer City Bruiser and Brian Milonas, whatever his name is. But I expected the Briscoes to kind of bump around for him and make them look like powerhouses. And they tried to tell that story, but it just didn't. It just never really kicked into high gear, and it just felt like paint by numbers, go through the motions. Typical Briscoes match, and without a lot of the crazy spots that people associate with the Briscoes. It was just a very formulaic match, to put it mildly. Not that interesting. We all knew the Briscoes were going to go over. There was no way the Bouncers were going to win this match, titles or not. And it was just kind of a weak match. And unfortunately, that trend kind of continued. Well, Marty Scurll versus Hurricane Helms. I thought the match was okay. I thought they had a better match on TV. Their second match on TV was much better. But I thought this match was okay and was going well enough, but then it just kind of devolved into a crazy mess just to set up a rematch that they're going to be having at the next TV tapings. And I thought, man, should Marty Scurll be working competitively with the Hurricane at this point? I mean, no knock. I'm not trying to knock the Hurricane. I like the guy. I think he's a very talented dude. But, he was kind of a comedy jobber for the most part in the WWE. And now you've got Marty Scurll, who's like one of the hottest indie stars out there right now, and he's, having competitive matches with the Hurricane. It just seems a little silly. I know what they're doing, superhero versus villain, and I think that's a nice setup, but they've had 3 matches now, getting ready to have a 4th. Actually, they probably already had the 4th, because I'm assuming the TV tapings have already happened, but I just feel like this is kind of beneath Marty to be doing something like this and working competitively with the Hurricane multiple matches in a row. I just feel like, that could have been a one and done. You didn't have to do multiple matches of this. But in any case, the match was okay, but the finish, being a double count disqualification, just kind of made me roll my eyes. And also Marty Scurll needing help to beat down the Hurricane, again, just kind of seems silly to me, but... yeah. The next match was terrible. It was Sumi Sakai and Dr. Britt Baker versus Jenny Rose and Stella Gray. Stella Gray is green as shit and needs a lot of work. Just want to throw that out there. But the match wasn't interesting. There was no story. Nobody benefited from it. Nothing evolved from it. Nothing developed from it. It was just 4 girls going out there and having a match, and they were all baby faces, so nobody got heat, nobody overcame anything. It was just a match where nothing happened, except Stella Gray looked awful in there. That was pretty much it. And again, I keep saying it, and I'll say it again. Sumi Sakai just isn't working as the Women of Honor champion, and you could have gone with Kelly Klein, man. I think she was the one to go with. But again, I know I'm a heel-centric guy, and I feel like heels should be the champs, and then you can drive a lot more from storylines and build-ups with the heel as champion. But Sumi Sakai just isn't interesting at all. I think they're trying to turn her into their version of Asuka, but it just isn't working. It's just not. And most of her matches are falling flat. This match definitely fell flat. No knock on Dr. Britt Baker or Jenny Rose. I think they were just kind of along for the ride. They've got a dull champion on one side and a green girl on the other one, and they just kind of got dragged down with it. So, unfortunately, but this was the worst match on the show, in my opinion. It just wasn't good. Next up, we got a no disqualification match. Bully Ray taking on Jonathan Gresham. I liked Bully's pre-match promo. I thought he was getting a lot of heat from that, and I thought it was going fairly well. And then you get to the match, and Jonathan Gresham has been getting better and better and having stellar performances lately, especially after his matches with Jay Lethal. But this just kind of, again, it just kind of didn't kick into high gear. It just kind of felt like an ordinary paint by numbers hardcore match, and they didn't really do anything that special or that crazy or anything. It didn't feel like that intense of a match, which is what you expect a no DQ match to be. And Bully Ray got the win with a low blow, and that was that. It was just, again, it wasn't a terrible match. It was just kind of okay, and I thought Gresham would come out of this looking better, and he really didn't. So, just kind of a forgettable paint by numbers hardcore match is really all it was. Then we had the Ring of Honor 6-man tag team championship. The Bullet Club taking on SoCal Uncensored. Bullet Club being Cody Rhodes, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson, the defending champions. Now, before this match, they did a bit where Cody was helping Kazarian promote these cigars that Kazarian's promoting. And it was a comedy bit, and it was funny. The problem, though, is that you've got a title match coming up, and it kind of kills the tension or the drama for me if everybody's acting all buddy-buddy right before the match starts. It's like, oh, well, that kind of kills the competitive aspect to it, at least in my mind, because, I always like there to be at least a little bit of heat between both sides and kind of get those competitive juices flowing. And then, before the match starts, they start doing a bit. And again, it was funny, but it's just kind of like, why are all the opponents acting all buddy-buddy with each other? It's just, I don't know. Match itself was fine. Best match on the show up to this point. Pretty solid. Pretty much what you would expect out of a 6-man tag, especially when involving the Bucks and Cody. Wasn't quite as spotty as I was expecting, but turns out it didn't really need to be because the crowd was most invested in this match more than any other one on the card, it seemed. And it was solid. It was a good effort all around from everybody, but not enough to save the show. It was just kind of it was a pretty good 6-man tag, but not anything to necessarily go out of your way to see either. So, again, Bullet Club retained, which was no surprise, and but it was a good match and probably the match of the night. And next up, we got the main event, Jay Lethal defending the Ring of Honor World title against Silas Young. But before the match started, Matt Taven came out and with his purple Ring of Honor World title belt, saying that he's the true Ring of Honor champion because he's beaten everybody on the roster and yada, 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 all that other stuff. I really like Matt Taven, and it's nice to see him kind of break out of his shell a little bit and spreading his wings, and we'll see where that goes. But I think a big... I guess a ladder match with Lethal with both belts on the line or something should be coming. Maybe at Final Battle. We'll see. We'll see how that all turns out. But anyway, Lethal versus Silas Young, I thought these two had a great match when they did the Last Man Standing match a while back. I thought that was the best match on that show that they had that match on. This one was nowhere near as good as that, but it was pretty solid. As like a solid main event, I thought it was fine. And it was nice to see Silas reference, like, look, I've beaten Jay Lethal and he didn't get one on me on his redemption tour. So they had like that hanging story thread there, and they got a main event out of it. A solid main event, but at no point was I convinced that Silas was going to win the title. I pretty much knew it's like, look, Lethal's going to win. And I think that's a lot of what was missing from this show. There wasn't like that key grudge match where you wanted to see somebody win, or that key title match where you thought maybe the titles could change hands. There were very few titles, only 2 on the whole show, the last 2 matches, and I was never convinced that the championships were in danger. So, lack of drama on the show, I think would be the best way to describe it. But unfortunately, it wasn't very good. It was just kind of the card felt kind of thrown together and ended up coming off as fairly mundane, which is unfortunate. Ring of Honor typically delivers their A game for their big shows and their pay-per-views and everything, and this one, the last two actually, just kind of fell flat, and I'm a little surprised by that. But in any case, hopefully the next one will be much better. The show ended with Jay Lethal getting confronted by both Cody and Kenny King, finally appearing after skipping out on his tag team partner earlier in the show, and both of them making their intentions known that they want a gun for the Ring of Honor World title. So are we going to get a triple threat? We're going to get Lethal defending against each one in one-on-one matches. We shall see. We'll probably get both of those things. We shall see. So at least it ended on something like, all right, let's see where that goes. See if they can get something out of that. But Glory by Honor 16 was an unfortunately mundane show and not the best effort from Ring of Honor. Okay, and let's close things out with my review of Impact Wrestling's latest pay-per-view offering, Bound for Glory 2018. Now, if you saw my review of Slammiversary earlier this year, you saw that I really enjoyed that show. I gave it a glowing review. I thought it was one of the best pay-per-views of the year. Best pay-per-view that company has done in eons. Excellent show. Bound for Glory was not as good, but still pretty solid overall. Nice solid effort. There were a few production gaffes throughout the show that kind of hurt it. I also didn't like the venue, to be perfectly honest. When I heard they'd sold out, I was like, oh great, that's good news. Then I saw it and I was like, it felt like a sardine can. Like everything was just cramped together. It didn't look like it housed a lot of people. It's like, oh, you sold out. How many tickets did you sell? 200? I mean, it did not look like that big of a crowd. And the building looked small, the ring looked small, the space between the ring and the security guardrail was minuscule. It just felt like everybody was just cramped together. It had a very claustrophobic feel to it. And it just, like, you know, come on, guys. You could space it out a little bit better than that. But, you know, those issues aside, I thought most of the show was pretty good. We had an opening tag match, Rich Swann, and making his Impact Wrestling debut, Willie Mack, taking on Matt Sydal and Ethan Page. This is everything you want an opener to be. It was action-packed. It was fun. Willie Mack looked great. You know, I'm a mark of his because of Lucha Underground. And he's done really well in that show, and now to see him in another company, you know, he's doing really well here. And the real appeal of him is that he's a fat fuck that can do these athletic things. And I'm like, that shouldn't be possible. How is he doing that? And he's just a fun guy to watch. And, you know, Sydal is usually reliable. Rich Swann has been doing really well in Impact since leaving WWE, and I thought it was a pretty good match. That's... you know, everything you want an opener to be. It wasn't a huge match. It wasn't a huge championship bout or a huge grudge match necessarily, although there is a grudge between Rich Swann and Matt Sydal. It was just a good, solid, action-packed match to warm up the crowd and get things started on the right foot, and they succeeded. Next up, we had the Eli Drake Open Challenge, which was answered by James Ellsworth, who the New York crowd did not like at all. You know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think Eli Drake is one of the diamonds in the rough in pro wrestling. That guy is so comfortable in his role and is so good at portraying the character that he portrays, and so good on the mic that he really carried this whole segment easily. And, you know, when the crowd started to turn on Ellsworth, I mean, they pretty much did the minute he walked out there, he kept it entertaining and played with it and made it fun. And Eli is just good at doing things like that. You know, whether it be insulting the New York Giants or just being an asshole or you know, making fun of Ellsworth or whatever. I think Eli he's very underrated, I think. I think he's very underrated. The match was a squash, I mean, thank God, you know. But it was, I thought it was an okay display of Eli Drake's talents. And then after the match was over, Abyss came down, the newest inductee into the Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame. He came down, got into a scuffle with Eli Drake, and put him to a table. Now, typically, I'm not a fan of the young stars getting served up for the old guard. I probably wouldn't have used Eli Drake as the one to do this, but I think supposedly they had a bigger surprise planned for someone to answer the open challenge. And I guess a lot of people thought it was going to be Jericho. I didn't hear that until after the show had taken place, but apparently a lot of fans thought it was going to be Jericho. And I know they did start chanting Y2J at one point, but Apparently, whatever the original plan was didn't happen, and so they concocted the whole thing was with Ellsworth, and then threw Abyss out there to throw some flavoring onto the whole thing and make it not suck. And it was like, okay, I'm like, I can deal with that. And for something that was really just designed to be a goofy Gaga segment, it kind of worked, mainly because of Eli Drake. I think he handled the whole thing fairly well. Next up, we got the Impact Knockouts Championship match. Tessa Blanchard defending against Taya Valkyrie. This match was great. These two ladies went out there and tore it down and had like a really, really friggin' good match. And Tessa Blanchard continues to be one of my favorite female performers out there right now. She's just always having these like really good performances. I was like, man, she's great. And it also helps that she's super hot. That makes me happy because I'm a pig. But yeah, I think, Taya, I'm a fan of hers from Lucha Underground as well. That's how I really got exposed to her. And I thought they went out there and just had a hell of a match. It was really flippin' good. And I was really impressed with both of them by the time it was over. Tessa retained, which I thought was the right move. And but I think both girls was like, yeah, they had one of the better matches on the show. I think that was, up to this point, it was easily the best match on the show. And I think by the time the show was over, it was one of the better matches on the show when it was all said and done. So my hat's off to both ladies. And it's even more impressive that it was one of the few non-gimmicked singles matches. One of the few singles matches. There were not a lot of singles matches on this show. But, didn't have a gimmick, didn't have a stipulation. Just two girls competing for a championship, who's the best? And that was basically what they did, and I thought they had a terrific match. So my hat's off to them. I thought they did great. Next up, you had the whole situation with Eddie Edwards facing Moose, a match that ended very early in a disqualification thanks to Killer Cross, which brought out Tommy Dreamer, who then made it a no disqualification tag team match, and it was Dreamer and Edwards versus Moose and Killer Cross. Okay, I have some questions. Can Tommy Dreamer just come out there and make matches? How is that allowed? I don't know, and this didn't really work for me, especially when you look at matches that happened later in the show that had similar no disqualification stipulations, and turned out much better. This match just kind of fell flat, and I think, I don't know if Eddie Edwards and Moose could have had a really good singles match together, but I would have rather had like a straight up singles match than just throwing this pointless window dressing out there. And, it's impressive that Tommy Dreamer can still get pay-per-view matches in 2018, but it was, and I was also happy that Killer Cross got on the card because I'm slowly becoming more and more of a fan of his. With his work in Lucha Underground, his work in Impact. I think he's a legitimately intimidating fellow. And I think that helps him out a lot. So it was nice that he got a match on the show. But overall, this didn't really click with me. It just kind of felt like, pointless window dressing to me. Eddie Edwards and Tommy Dreamer won, but yeah, that was that. That was that. So, after that, we had an OVE rules match, which is basically a wild friggin' tornado tag hardcore match. Although it was more of a tornado tag. They didn't get too hardcore with this, but it was OVE taking on Brian Cage, Phoenix, and Pentagon Jr. Wild ass match. Brian Cage is a beast, Pentagon is awesome, and Phoenix is an amazing luchador-style athlete that can do all these incredible things. And OVE, I think, is one of the best acts in Impact Wrestling right now. Probably the best act in Impact Wrestling. So you get all these guys, over characters that have been feuding for a while, and you put them together in one match, and you get something pretty good. And I thought it was a pretty hot match. I thought it was a very exciting match. It was kind of spotty, but, with a tornado tag, that's expected. And it was a wild free-for-all, and kind of surprised me that Brian Cage was the one who ate the pin, because they've been billing him as this unbeatable machine, and had never been pinned or submitted up to this point, and he's the X Division champion right now, so no X title match on this show. Like I said, there weren't not a lot of title matches between Impact and Ring of Honor this weekend. But they basically singled out Brian Cage and super kicked him into oblivion. And Sami Callihan got the pin on Brian Cage. So it tells me, he's like, all right, X Division title, I guess we're getting Sami Callihan versus Brian Cage. Which doesn't sound very X Division-y, but, it is what it is. So, yeah, OVE got the win, which I was happy to see. It's their match, and I feel like they should probably get the win here. But overall, very entertaining match, exciting stuff. And next we got probably the most interesting looking match on the show. LAX taking on the OGs, Hernandez, Homicide, and King. It was supposed to be Santana, Ortiz, and Konnan, but Konnan got attacked earlier in the show, and Santana and Ortiz had to go it alone in a 2-on-3 disadvantage. So this was the Concrete Jungle Death Match. I had absolutely no idea what that was. I speculated that this was going to be kind of the Lucha Underground Final Deletion style match that they would do on the show. I was wrong. I'll come back to that based on what happened in the next segment. But basically what they did here, they removed all the padding from the ringside area and removed all the canvas and the covering from the ring mat. So it was just the exposed boards underneath the canvas, and I was like, oh no, they're not doing this. Oh God. And it really, if I had to compare it to anything, it was like the Inferno match, or when TNA brought back the Scaffold match of all things, with the Elevation X match. I'm like, yes, it looks cool. The visual is great, and it looks cool. It just seems needlessly dangerous, and I'm scared to death for the guy's safety because anything could go wrong. And when they were working inside that ring, like the board started slipping, I'm like, oh my God, somebody's going to fall through the mat and break his leg. Guys are going to be bumping off of that thing, and every bump made me cringe. It's like, oh God, owies. I thought the match came off really well. It was intense. King is awesome and just a believable douchebag. And, I thought the action was pretty good, and I thought the match went fairly well. But please never do this match again, because I don't want anybody to get hurt. Right. It's the same thing I said about the Inferno match. It's the same thing I said about any Scaffold match. All right, went pretty well. Don't ever do this match again, please. I'm begging you. Because it just increases the chance of injury by like tenfold. And every flat back bump that they took just on that exposed canvas, I was like, oh my God, there's not enough money on this planet to get me to do that. But like I said, the match came off well, and as I predicted, Konnan did come down to the ring and get his revenge on King, so he got his spots in there, which was fine. And overall, entertaining match, fairly good. Just please never do this match again, because it could get somebody could get hurt doing that. We don't need that. That's fine. And next up, we got what I thought was going to be a match between Allie and Su Yung. Instead, turned into a Lucha Underground style segment where Allie goes into the undead realm with Father James Mitchell as her guide. And then she starts axe murdering all these demons, demon ladies, the undead bridesmaids, in the undead realm. And access to this realm is achieved through a casket that you go into and you magically teleport into the undead realm. And she went in there to save Kiera Hogan's soul. Not her soul. She wasn't allowed to go in there and save her soul. So apparently Allie's walking around without a soul. And what I just described really does sound like an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I know a lot of people compared it to that. And here's my problem. First of all, I understand why they put the segment here, because they needed to clean up the ring and put the ring mats back on from the Concrete Jungle, and this segment gave them ample time to do that. So I understand all of that, but here's why this segment didn't work here and why it works on Lucha Underground. And this is one of the things I praised Lucha Underground for almost from the very beginning, where Lucha Underground is fully dedicated to its TV show style of presentation. It is straight up a TV show. They don't break the fourth wall necessarily. They don't. Really, one of the nice touches that they do is that all those great cinematic scenes that they do, no matter how wild they get, no matter how crazy they get, how otherworldly and supernatural they get, the announcers don't see them and the people in the arena don't see them, which I think is key to making those segments work, because it maintains the illusion of a TV show. The only ones who get to see that stuff is the television audience. And that's why it works. It allows us to immerse ourselves in this world, because it's like, look, this is not a live sporting event. That we're not trying to create the illusion of a live sporting event. We're trying to create the illusion of a TV show. And I think because of that, Lucha Underground is a lot more acceptable. they also have better production when it comes to that stuff. And not that this looked bad, but when it got to Rosemary and Su Yung shooting lightning at each other, I'm like, oh wow, we've really gone down the rabbit hole now. And again, if Lucha Underground did this, it would probably be great. But here, where you really get into a problem is right after the thing is over, you come back to Don Callis, and Don Callis is like, what the hell did we just watch? And it's like, all right, so the announcers see it, the live audience, I'm presuming the live audience saw it, and that raises a lot of questions. Who the fuck is filming this? Did the cameraman go into the casket with Allie and get transported into the undead world? Who edited this thing together? Who set this thing to Impact? And why is Impact airing it? It's just, it creates, and it's one of those problems. WWE has a similar problem whenever they try to do something like this, but it's just at odds with itself because it can't decide if it wants to be a live sporting event or a TV show. And you do things like this and the two ideas just kind of butt heads, and it's like, wait, that doesn't add up. Why, if the announcers can see it and the live crowd can see it, then I have a whole bunch of questions about who's filming it, doing what, and this, that, and the other. Whereas Lucha Underground pretty much avoids all of those issues. And I feel like that this segment was done largely because of Lucha Underground. It was inspired by Lucha Underground, but yeah, it didn't work. It just on a show like this, it didn't work. And I'm not trying to sound snobby or biased. That it's like, oh, Lucha Underground is so much better. It's like, no, there's a reason why it works with Lucha Underground and why it doesn't always work with a lot of other companies. If Impact and Impact's been doing that for a while. This isn't like a new thing. They did a similar thing with Madison Rayne at a funeral, and Su Yung was stalking her throughout the funeral home or whatever. And the announcers were commentating on it, and I'm just kind of like, well, if they can see it, then what the hell's going on? Like, it creates all these issues that shouldn't be there. Whereas, again, to compare it to Lucha Underground, one thing that they did that I loved is when they did the segment where Matanza murdered Bale, nobody saw it. So it makes sense, like, because the announcers didn't see it and the live crowd didn't see it. It's like, all right, so why has nobody called the cops and say that a man got murdered in the temple? Because no one in the arena can actually see it, which is why all of that works. And the announcers, I think it was Vampiro, he made a comment like, wonder where Bale is. We haven't seen Bale in a while. It's like, he got murdered like 3 weeks ago. I know that because I'm the television audience, but nobody in the arena knows that, and nobody at the announce desk knows that, and that's why they're able to maintain their illusion. But Impact, whenever they try these things, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. With the exception of the broken Matt Hardy stuff, it's like, all right, all of those questions that come up with the broken Matt Hardy stuff, I answered with, Matt Hardy has a team. He's filming this himself. He has his aerial assault drones, which are basically just drones with cameras on them. He's filming all this, and he's got an army of Vanguard 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s. So that kind of is like, this is Matt Hardy, and we're just entering into his insane world. And so those always kind of worked for me, but this one didn't really work for me. Again, I'm not saying it was shot horribly or anything like that. It just, I mean, it looked like something out of a B movie, but it was, it just didn't work in the style of show that Impact Wrestling is trying to be. So that's my 2 cents on it. But, they needed time to kill to put the ring back together, so I can forgive it somewhat. Then we got the main event, Austin Aries defending the Impact Wrestling World Championship against Johnny Impact. These two got into a scuffle at the Hall of Fame, Abyss's Hall of Fame ceremony the night before, or maybe 2 nights before, I'm not sure which. And looked like they were shooting on each other, which I thought was just them. I assume the whole thing was a work. I have no reason to not think it was a work. And they were just trying to add some fuel to the fire to create more intrigue and more of a buzz for their main event match. Taya was in Impact's corner, and Cross and Moose were in Aries' corner. And I thought the match turned out very, very well. These two worked very well with each other. A lot of creative and cool stuff that they did. Again, I criticized them for the lack of space between the ring and the security railing, but Impact did a cool spot where he jumped up and landed on his feet on top of both the ring apron and kind of split-legged on the ring apron and the security railing, and then did a moonsault as Austin Aries ran underneath him. And I was like, wow, that actually looked pretty cool. So it actually took a disadvantage and made it work into an advantage. And I thought it was a stellar match all around. Great stuff. Excellent match. Probably match of the night for me. You know, I mean, the women's match was very good. The OVE versus Cage, Phoenix, and Pentagon match was very good. And the Concrete Jungle, for what it was pretty solid as well. But the opening tag match was good. But I think the main event was probably my favorite match on the show. And I thought it was a stellar title match, great main event. But a lot of people are talking about the ending where Impact wins the title with Starship Pain. After the pin, Aries pops up, looks like he jaw jacks and flips off Don Callis and then storms out of the ring. And people are wondering, is it a shoot? Is it a work? Are they trying to work us? Are they trying to Russo us? What's going on here? Again, I'm assuming it's a work until I hear otherwise. I'd heard comments from P.D. Williams, who's the producer on this match, the agent of this match, that Aries' contract with Impact Wrestling is done. That was his last night and he's not going to be at the tapings, blah, blah, blah. Again, that could be them just working us. I don't know. It felt like they were trying to create some kind of buzz coming out of the pay-per-view, and that was their way of doing that. I don't know where they would be going if that's the case, but we'll just have to see how it plays out. I'm going to check out Impact next week just to see what happens, so we shall see. But overall, I thought Bound for Glory, not without its issues, not without its hiccups, but was overall a pretty solid show. And again, Slammiversary was much better, but I thought this was a pretty solid show overall. And there's a handful of things that are worth going out of your way to see, I think. Opening tag match was good. If you like Eli Drake, check out his bits. That was great. The women's title match I thought was very good. The six-man match was very good. The Concrete Jungle match at least looked cool and was intense and mostly worked. And the main event was very good. So overall, I thought it was a pretty damn good show from start to finish with a couple of hiccups along the way. But, you know, them's the breaks. So, yeah, I think that about wraps it up for me in this video. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you got more out of Smackdown 1000 and maybe Glory by Honor and maybe even Bound for Glory. Hopefully you got more out of those shows than I did. But, yeah, I was really left flat by that Ring of Honor show. And SmackDown was what it was, but I still can't get over how, like, just flat that show was. But anyway, that is all I have for you now. My next What Went Wrong should be out sometime this week, hopefully Wednesday or Thursday. We shall see. But that is all I have for you right now. So I'm going to go get dressed and actually put some clothes on because I look like a wreck right now. I need to get in the shower. You can't smell it, but I smell like rank. I really worked up a sweat. But I'm all done here for tonight. Y'all have a good night, and I'll have more for you later this week. So see you later, everybody.